Speaking of somebody who's not good, the Dallas Cowboys in their last game got wiped out by the Packers in a playoff game at home.
Wiped up.
There's been a lot of stuff going on this offseason with Dak Prescott not getting a contract extension, CeeDee Lamb looking for an extension, Micah Parsons maybe is pissing people off in the facility. Maybe he's not. He's not there for voluntary workouts to start off the offseason. All that being said, Stephen Jones spoke with the fan in Dallas about the team's inactivity and what their plan is and approach is as an organization moving forward.
I think if you're not all in this league, you're all out. And I don't know of any of the 32 who aren't all in. And, everybody can have their own definition of what that means, but I've never not known us to be all in, nor have I known anybody we compete against not to be all in. It's, they have different strategies as to what that means. We spend max money year in and year out. All 32 can only spend the same amount of money over a 5-year stretch. And when we're all said and done, we max out our salary cap every year, and we will have done that. What comes with having a good roster, which we do, and we also are looking towards signing our own guys. It doesn't mean it happens overnight, but when you're wanting to sign players like Dak and Micah and CD, then you have to hold money back if you want to have a realistic chance at signing those guys.
So that was Stephen Jones talking with a fan in Dallas about where they stand this offseason.
Can I point out some inaccuracies just so people out there listening know? He just lied. That's not true.
Jeez.
They don't have to spend close to all their cap, okay? For starters, the owners and teams over a 3-year period have to average 90% of the salary cap. So technically, whatever that number is, right? Like, what is it this year? Is it $250 million, 250-some million? They don't have to spend up to that, right? Take 10% off, right? Let's say $250 to make the math easy. 10% is $25 million. They only have to spend at $225. That's what the collective bargaining agreement states with the NFLPA. And one of the reasons why it was put in to have a spending floor, so you could get owners who weren't spending anywhere close to the salary cap to actually spend money, right? To actually pay players. It's one way of forcing them to do so. Now, if you did it every single year, that'd be a little easier to track, right? Because you'd say, hey, every year you have to spend over 90. Well, when you average it over 3 years, that means they can figure out ways of manipulating the numbers to not spend it in year 2 or year 3 or maybe both. So there are teams that abuse this rule and don't spend up to it. They kind of have to by league standards, and the league-wide spend is 95% over those periods. But the point I'm making is like that's not true. Teams don't always go all in. Dallas hasn't always gone all in. You can spend more than the salary cap because you can spend cash, and there's some teams who are more willing to spend some of that cash in order to construct their roster to still make it compliant within the salary cap and try to go win a championship. I wouldn't say the Cowboys have not done that, but I wouldn't say they necessarily have done that. There's been times they have, but this is an instance this year where you've got CeeDee Lamb who's now missing voluntary workouts. Does anyone disagree that CeeDee Lamb shouldn't get?
He's deserving.
Yeah, he should get it.
Yeah, he's deserving.
If you believe in Dak Prescott as your quarterback in the long term, you should restructure. Pay out some cash, pay out some bonuses. So, right. Micah Parsons, he's eventually going to need to be extended. And by the way, that's a credit to them for drafting those guys, developing those guys, them becoming stars. That's a good problem to have, but don't listen to a lie like that. Not all these teams spend up the entire salary cap. That's just not always how this works. They're in this situation because they waited to pay Dak Prescott. They paid for it. He signed a ridiculous deal. And now, for whatever reason, they don't want to extend him out a little bit and try to restructure this thing to give themselves a little more salary cap space so they could have spent more in free agency. Instead, one of your biggest signings is Royce Freeman, who comes in on a 1-year deal with the running back position to add to Deuce Vaughn and Rico Doodle, and that's where they're at.
Mm. Well, I think it's a wrap for Dak Prescott. It's going to be a wrap for Mike McCarthy, and in comes Shedeur Sanders and Deion Sanders. Yeah. And the hype train leaves Boulder and goes into Fort Worth. Are they in Fort Worth? I think they're in Fort Worth. Are they in Fort Worth?
Cowboys?
Yeah.
Their facility's not. Their facility's in what's the name? Frisco.
Frisco.
Texas.
But they play in Fort Worth, don't they? I don't care. Anyway.
I believe it's Arlington.
Arlington. There you go. Yeah, there you go.
It's in Texas.
It's in Texas.
That is in the state of Texas.
Yeah,
That's
it
correct.
is in the state of Texas. I thought that it was kind of an interesting conversation that we had on that yesterday. I mean, Jonas, you threw it out there. And the more I sat and kind of thought on it, I mean, the amount of, like, Jerry Jones is a salesperson, right? He's a marketer. He's an advertiser. He's like a juggernaut with it. That's what he does really well. Why would you not sell tickets? Like, I mean, they're already sold out and all that stuff, but imagine how much more they could do if they brought in Deion Sanders after Mike McCarthy's tenure ends this year. And then Dak Prescott's tenure ends this year.
If Dak Prescott has a year like he had this year, are they really just going to let him walk?
You know what's crazy? He's a really good pro football quarterback, but he hasn't proven that he is first level grade A franchise. I can take my team to a Super Bowl quarterback.
So is this like what the Vikings did with Kirk Cousins, where they said, well, but we can do better and age, and we'd rather just restart the clock with somebody else?
Why not?
All right. Well,
why not?
Then you're getting further away from being a competitive team that's going to be a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
But are you?
I was going to say, I actually don't even know that was their strategy. I mean, the Vikings have never outwardly said that was their strategy. I just think they didn't want to pay Kirk what he was asking for, which it wasn't a fully guaranteed deal, which is the most surprising thing. So I'm not sure what to make of that. It almost just sounds like, they want to kind of clean up some of the salary cap, but they're still trying to say they want to be competitive. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case given their roster situation.
I mean, if Dak Prescott has a year like he has this year and they don't re-sign him, he's going to be a coveted free agent next year.
He's on that Kirk Cousins level, so it's going to go up from there.
I don't know, man. It's a little strange how they're doing things in Dallas, unless, again, as they've got a plan and an eye towards the future, and that involves Sanders and Hunter.
The
law offices of Sanders and Sanders
and Hunter.
Yeah, apparently, which would be fun as hell to watch. By the way. Deion, rocking a cowboy hat every game there in Dallas with the Cowboys. But
I think he's proven he has a chance to do it. I'd say that. But I mean, let's focus in on what is here now, right now. I'll say super quickly. Mike McCarthy does know his job. He has to know his job is on the line right now. That's first and foremost. And so, what does that look like in terms of what he's able to do as a coach when you have Dak Prescott in the situation he's in, when you have CeeDee Lamb who wants his contract, and you got to take this offseason and work through the fact that, right now he's not happy because he doesn't feel like he's whole. Micah Parsons is sitting there and wondering if he's going to get his extension now or if it's going to come later. What happens with that? I think it creates a lot of unnecessary questions and pressures that Mike McCarthy has to deal with as a coach. I mean, those are your three biggest players that you're talking about. So how do you navigate in such a pivotal moment in your career? And make no mistake about it, this is it. If Mike McCarthy doesn't get it done, this is not only it for him as a head coach in Dallas, this is probably it for him as a head coach, period, in the National Football League. This is it. So there's a lot riding on this season for Mike McCarthy, and this just doesn't seem to be the most ideal of scenarios that seem to be playing out for him right now in Dallas.
Yeah, I would agree.